Right. So for panel this time, it's me, Juho Vepsäläinen, Luke Jackson, Mikhail Novikov, and then we have Aapeli Haanpuu from Go4, one of our sponsors. So we can discuss the topics from today, or you can bring out your own questions. Or I mean, let's do it this way. Do you have any specific topic you want to discuss, or you want to go to this burnout topic or something else?
At least the burnout topic is really interesting topic that people really doesn't talk enough, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, let's start with that. So, I mean, did you have any specific experiences you want to share, or tips or tricks, or like thoughts on the topic?
Well, I started to think during the Q&A session that about those mini tips or something, that having a burnout is kind of like breaking your leg, so that you can help it in some ways that it doesn't hurt so much. You can sit down and not do any sports, etc. But in order to actually get it to heal, you have to do the necessary actions, meaning go to doctor, etc. So I think the burnout is kind of the same, that when you actually reach the state of burnout, I don't think it can be like here, how do you say it? But yeah, you have to stop and you have to
take a break.
Take the action. Yeah.
That's a really good kind of like an analogy, that the broken leg. And I think it works really well here.
Yeah, it does. You won't feel it like a broken leg necessarily, but it is important to stop. It's important to notice it and to stop.
Yeah.
For me, definitely just close your laptop for at least a week. It's a really easy thing to do. I know it's hard sometimes, but even if you work a software engineering job and you can't stop the job, it's sometimes possible to carry on, without a laptop. Do things on pen and paper again for a little bit. Take a lot of walks. Nature is a great healer.
That's sort of a good question. Can your organization work without you? Because if the organization depends too much on you, or the other way around, it's not a good position for anyone. So maybe like that's one of the things to consider, is that can you make yourself somehow replaceable? I mean, of course, it's not there's this term work safety, that your work is safe, but at the same time, you should be able to do the work so that it's not too much up to one person.
I think one problem here is that, like, together with like imposter syndrome, we also have this feeling always that kind of we can't let people down. At least I definitely do. Like, I have both imposter syndrome, where I feel I'm worthless, and I have the feeling that, like, if I leave, I'll let everyone down. Then everything will be bad because I have left for like a couple of weeks. And it's really hard to overcome this like kind of deadly combination, because you don't feel any gratification from the work, because you always feel that you're going to be discovered and kind of, said that you're a bad programmer. And at the same time, you have this kind of feeling that you can't stop, because, so many things depend on you and so many things are there to do. And like, everyone will be unhappy if you leave. So yeah, I think for both of those things, it's important to realize that you're not an imposter. You're a great developer, and you're like, also your team is also all great developers. They will be able to handle without you. If you need to take time off, you need to take time off, and your team will handle, and they will be happy to pick up your slack, because they will all also have been in the same position. Will understand that, okay, yeah, you're being burned out. You really need to take a break. They hopefully they all care about you, and in this situation, like, it's important to kind of understand that in a way, you burning out and you not being able to work at all would be worse for the team too, than you actually taking like healthy breaks and not having to then kind of have this kind of emergency long vacation because you burned out.
Yeah, when it comes to take time off, it's actually it's a tricky topic if you're a consultant or you have your own company. I mean, how do you define the limit? I mean, when can you take time off? It's sort of it's a tricky thing. And then another thing is that sometimes you have, let's say, unlimited vacation policy. That in theory you could take anytime you want. You could take time off, but then will people take time off unless they're more or less forced to? Because I think in Finland we get 3 or 4 weeks. I don't know the exact amount at the moment, but you have to use this time. So
yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Both situations are tough, and in both situations, people tend to take too little time off. Kind of, I can only say that I'm yet to see a situation where people actually, abuse limited time off and take too much time off. I've never seen that, but I've seen like millions of situations where people don't take enough time off.
Yeah, I'm in agreement actually, and I'm a big proponent of extended periods of time off. I've used unpaid holiday to take a whole month off. Like, just do it. It's a week is definitely not enough. You're constantly thinking about the work. Even week 2, you're still thinking, oh, okay, week 1 I've forgotten about work. Week 2, now I'm thinking about, oh well, I've got work in 4 more days. But a month is a good time. Also, I find a change in scenery really helps put things in perspective. Just go to, if possible, go to a different country. See something you've never seen before, and you realize that the world's much bigger than your little bubble that you've been living in and worrying about, and how small your issues usually are.
So when you go on a holiday, do you take a social media break as well? Or do you still use social media during your breaks?
No, I tried to, at least on my last break, I tried to switch that off completely as well.
Yeah.
Take a lot of photos, but don't post any. Not that I wouldn't post many anyway, but just don't post at all. Try not read, try not scroll,
Yeah, it definitely helps, man. And definitely disable your work communicate, like disable the Slack. Don't go on your work Slack on your vacation. That's not good.
Yeah, I usually remove the Slack app during my holidays.
Yeah, makes sense.
I mean, personally, I don't have any notifications on any apps anymore, really, except instant messaging from friends and stuff. But everything else, all badges, everything removed. You check those things when you want to check them.
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of people are doing things upside down. So we're living in the world of notifications, but it's like push model. So a lot of information gets pushed to us, but it like this will be more like a pull. So you decide when you want to consume the information, and then you can consume the information. So you don't get distracted all the time. Yeah. That's actually one of the issues that's annoying for me about GitHub, because it's pushing so much information to you. All time you get emails, there's this issue and that issue, and so it will be somehow re-engineered so that it's following pull model. Yeah.
Imagine like a give me the next issue button.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've disabled the email notifications because it was impossible, especially kind of when you have to maintain a very popular open source repository that has like a huge amount of like 50 events happening or like 100 events happening every day, then it just becomes impossible to actually use notifications.
Do you think that yeah, sorry. Yeah.
That said, I always still feel guilty. I've just looked at some of my notifications there, and I saw someone created an issue 2 days ago, and I'm already like, thanks for your patience. There was no like obligation there, but I don't know. You still feel a bit guilty, yeah.
It's sort of weird with open source because I think in most cases people don't get paid for the work, but at the same time you feel like you have some kind of obligation to do the work. So even now I have 2 issues waiting to be done. It's maybe 1 hour of work if I do it well, but it's just waiting there in the browser. But then I have to find the 1 hour to do the work. I'm not going to get paid for it, but it just has to be done. So it's and I imagine if you maintain something that's really, really popular and that has lots of issues, and at the same time you have pressure from work, and then you will have to do the work, this open source work on your free time. So it's a lot of, it might be a lot of extra pressure on you on top of the actual work. So it's like, how do you deal with this kind of, like, how do you find time for every important thing in your life?
Yeah, I guess you need to figure out which things are less important. And kind of again, like I said before, like the work is, and even your like open source project is one part of you as a person, and that kind of you should never feel guilty for focusing on different things in your life that aren't work. Kind of work is there. Work is obviously a big part of everyone's life, and everyone needs money to survive. But kind of still, there are lots of different things in your life that if you don't focus on them, and then it will be much worse. It's better to probably lose the job than to like lose connections to people you value and like lose your support network. Those are much, in a way, more important, like your family, your friends.
Yeah, makes sense. But it's so maybe it's a good question to ask. What do you think works will look like? I mean, if you could design the way you work, how would you work? I guess that's the question for everyone to answer. I mean, how do you want to work? I mean, now I guess everyone has experience of working remote and working in office. So what do you prefer in terms of working?
I still prefer working remotely. Like I'm like I think many people have like been forced to this position by COVID, but I've chosen this originally like many years before, and I enjoy it. I like kind of first just started working remotely and then started working remotely from home, and I've never regretted this. It gives me more time to spend on things I like instead of spending it like on commute and the things that take time. And I feel like I can have genuine connection with. I mean, maybe it's harder to get kind of to be friends with people you work with. Like maybe it's harder, but I think it's still possible. And I think ultimately, you don't have to be friends with your coworkers. So kind of maybe this part of work of office life is like overvalued, and people just kind of companies want us to think we want to work in the office so we can be friends with our work pals, but then they just want you to stay in the office longer.
Mm-hmm. So
yeah.
No, sorry.
Sorry. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I've never really worked fully remote. I've worked in periods of remoteness and then gone back to the sort of usual routine of 5 days a week in the office. And I even though my commute was probably half an hour on average throughout my career, it takes its toll. I really think 5 days of this going in, going out, going in, going out is too much. That said, I really do miss being around other people, the spontaneity, even like on your commute. Sometimes you see something or see something happen and it sparks like a question in your head, whereas walking from the bedroom to the living room, it's pretty much the same every time. So I'm torn really. I think for me, if you say ideal working environment, it'll be maybe 1 or 2 days, Monday or Friday in the office. Like, hey everybody, welcome, new week. What are you working on this week? And then at the end, hey everybody, this is what I've done this week. Should we have a beer and go to the pub or something afterwards? It's stereotypically English, but that's what I enjoyed doing. And then the conversations that arise around those 2 days are more interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a good mixture, because I think working fully remote, you start still missing some interaction that's cool to have. But I guess when you have meetups running, when you work fully remote, then you will go to a meetup and meet other developers. So maybe that's sort of the compromise to achieve on normal times when meetups are running. So did you have any ideas on this, Aapeli?
Yeah. Well, I actually like much more about working in the office and doing the commuting in the morning and the evening mainly because when I try to work remotely, I have a very hard time drawing the line between working and free time, especially since I live in a flat and I don't even have a desk nowadays. So I have to work at the kitchen table or the sofa. So quite early, I started to use the after like in the pandemic, I started to use the office again because I was so lucky that no one else had decided to use the office. So I get to be alone. Yeah, that's usually how I prefer that. I take my time, go to the office. If I don't fulfill the hours, then I might do some tasks from home, but usually I try to work from office 5 days a week.
I mean, that's sort of a good topic. I mean, this tracking hours or tracking work. I mean, what do you feel about this hour tracking thing we do a lot? That you do some work, you track the time you did, and then you get some amount of hours per week, and then you have some commitment that you should work this and that much.
I usually don't track it very strictly. I kind of, even when doing consulting, I kind of, even if the billing will be in hours, I still kind of try to negotiate so that I track it in days, because hourly billing is also like this thing that kind of hangs above you, that, oh, I went to lunch for a bit longer, should I track this as hours, should I track this as hours? And then it's not like we're not really doing the work that is very nicely limited in hours. Like, you know, how many hours are actually productive during the day? Like, is it really important that you track like those 6 hours of the time where you mostly procrastinate and trying to get in the flow, when you've done most of the work in those 2 hours where you actually done programming? It's kind of, in this sense, I don't think hours are important. I think they're important like from business point of view, I guess, but for programmers, I think you should focus on dealing at kind of bigger increments.
Yeah.
And like judging yourself by bigger increments too.
Yeah, I really don't like tracking hours. If there would be a better way, I'd be happy to use it, but it's kind of a company requirement since do both billable work and non-billable work. So, and also during the same day. So I really see the requirement, but yeah.
Yeah. I'm also against the whole idea as well. It's weird. You can be as productive in 1 hour as you are in 8 hours on another day, you know, just depending on how you feel. And I think that's ultimately up to you. Generally, I prefer sort of performance-based analysis, not performance, but like, you know, if there were 3 things that needed to be done by this time, did you get them done? And if not, why? That's not a problem necessarily, but you know, let's talk about why. Did we overestimate? Did we underestimate? What went wrong? That's yeah, much prefer to sort of proof of work is proof of work. Like work has been done, and you can see it usually.
Yeah, I agree. It's really tricky in software engineering because I mean, if you really know what you're doing, okay, I'll give you an example. So let's say you have certain rate per hour, and you do your work for 10, 20 years. You never change the rate, or even have to reduce the rate because of competition or whatever. But at this 10, 20 years, you get much better at what you're doing. So the same work in the beginning, maybe you needed 20 hours, and then you learn so much that you can do the same in 1 hour. So now your hourly rate is one out of 20 after this 20 years because you got so much better. So it's a sort of a paradox, is that by getting better at what you do, you're actually reducing your rate in some way, or maybe you will do more work to the amount of hours. It's sort of, it's weird in software.
Yeah, but I think the whole problem arises from the lack of any better way of measuring programming work than hours. Yeah. Because yeah, you really shouldn't measure it in hours, since you can spend 7 hours just sitting, or then 1 hour really doing something, and you just, or like the client just paid 7 times more for the sitting. So
I think it's kind of in a way kind of a social contract between them, like, you know, contractor and a client. In a way, it's kind of, it's in a way it's good for contractor to be paid an hour instead of being paid by milestones, because milestones can take like twice the amount you estimate, and we know how bad we are estimating. And then billing by hour kind of protects them, and then billing by hour kind of gives a very easy framework for budgeting for the client. So in a way, we all know it doesn't work. Like the developers, contractors, the client knows it doesn't work, but we just need a system, like a social contract between like a consulting company and a contractor, well, and a client, like contractor and client, that kind of is agreeable enough for everyone. So yeah, we all hate it, but it's kind of it's better than other alternatives, unfortunately.
Yeah, I guess it's one of those problems that's really difficult to solve, because then you get this fixed price and you get some kind of service you sell as a service, and maybe you turn it into a web service even that people can buy the thing from online, and it's a complex discussion. But do you have anything in mind to discuss you want to bring out, or should I figure out some another topic? Yeah, it's a Finnish discussion, so it's there's this difference that, I mean, you go to Finland, and then what happens is that you have this American guys and European guys and Finnish guys in a discussion, and then there is a long pause, and you know what's going to happen. The Americans will get really frustrated, because for them it's important to have this discussion going on. So it's a sign that something is wrong when there's a long silence in Finland. But for anyone from Finland, it's completely normal to have a long silence in discussion. I mean, maybe it's a little stereotype, but I mean, there's some truth to that.
What's the stereotype for English people then?
I don't know. I mean, it's very difficult for me to say. But I think you're not as extreme as Finns. So maybe you're like, for you, maybe the silence is worse issue than for Finns.
Yeah, I think we're somewhere in the middle, actually. Yeah, I think we maybe find silence awkward, but we don't have the initiative to break it.
Yeah, that's the point.
We just sit there
There is
awkwardly.
a saying in Finnish language that goes like, silence is gold. So I think it tells quite a lot.
We have the same one as well. I very much appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's same in Russian actually, so it seems to be
okay.
Even in all the kind of social things, the silence, social countries, silence is considered gold, but then they still talk.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and when you start learning Finnish, I mean, it's likely you never will learn Finnish, but you notice that we have this thing with please, that we don't really have the word for please. So I think Mikhail was studying Finnish for a while. You might know this, but it's sort of, please doesn't work in Finnish the way you think it works. So we have something like that, but not exactly like that. So then that's the thing when you start. I've been learning German, and when you learn a new language, you learn a lot about culture as well. So it's sort of funny to see the connection between the language and the culture. So this brings us to the next topic. It might be this like language topic, JavaScript and TypeScript. So what's your take on TypeScript?
Tough one.
Yeah.
Personally, I very much appreciate a type system. I'm no expert yet. Still, I think it's a big topic to cover. But I was always fascinated by the likes of like the real purity, PureScript, Haskell, Elm, those kind of languages with all of that built in. Reason more recently. TypeScript still seems like it's something that's should be applicable piecemeal rather than sort of throwing everything like, okay, right, we're doing TypeScript now. Now we need a compiler for what was a runtime language. Like JavaScript is inherently a runtime language, and the benefits that come with it are what we've all got used to. And then when I'm all about no build, because that's how it sort of always was for me, and always is now. that said, like the safety you get is incredible. It makes working on big code bases much more sane for everybody. I just kind of wish it was Flow had something like I think they called them comment types or something like that, where you wrote your type annotations in a comment above.
I mean, there might be something like that for TypeScript. I think I remember.
Yeah, I think that they have it now. Yeah.
There is, yeah. I just sort of, so I wish, if anything, if you know, if I could have my way, it would be that we all adopted those first, and then we decided to sort of break down into a compiler, like a bit lower. But yeah, keep the compiler out of it for a while.
I think I will say that the Deno might be a big thing because of this, because it's making it brings TypeScript to the masses one day, I hope, because there is a lot of friction to use TypeScript with Node, because you have to bring a lot of tooling on top of Node, and then you have to get prettier and chest and whatever tooling. But with Deno, you get everything out of the box. So that might be the thing in the future. So we have half a minute. So I guess if you have any ending statement or want to say anything, it's a good time to do it.
Yeah, like it's tough times. Stay safe. I hope that we'll eventually meet personally on like next React Finland. I don't know. It's kind of every week it looks less and less likely.
Yeah, it's really tricky times for conference organizers.
Yeah. Regardless, thanks for taking the time to set this up, though. Very much appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for the organizers.